You know, since the Trump shooting, a lot has been said about the additional resources that were requested by the Trump team and those denials, but we really haven't had a lot to go off of until now. And today in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how bad it is and the Secret Service not wanting to burn through the budget for Trump and his rallies. We're going to talk about all that, and we're also going to talk about the $3.1 billion budget of the Secret Service and where some of that goes. I think you may be interested because as taxpayers, we're funding all this. Now, of course, just like every video I do, no matter if you agree or disagree, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. So this is coming from Representative Mike Waltz out of Florida, who is on the House Task Force looking at the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And what he was able to gather from these conversations about getting additional resources was not so much, hey, we're not going to give you extra money, right? But it was more of the atmosphere and the tone that he would receive back from them. Basically, it was like, hey, you know, we're not going to burn through the budget so Trump can have a bunch more rallies. So we're not going to, you know, pay overtime and, you know, all the additional resources and agents and all of that. We don't want to burn through our budget. Their budget has gone up significantly. So they are operating now on $3.1 billion a year. Now, the first thing I noticed about their budget is that every year except for 2016, they've been over budget, right? And a lot of years, 3 of the years that we're looking at, over $100,000 over that budget. So I'm like, okay, it's not like they're necessarily, you know, scared of spending all of that $3.1 billion. But what's interesting is when you look at that $3.1 billion, $907 million is used to protect the current president, vice president, and their families. Now, look, I don't want anything bad to happen to them. They should be protected, right? And so that's something I totally agree with. No matter how they think or feel, I don't want to see anything bad happen to them. You can't say that for a lot of people on the other side of things, right? Either way, don't want to see anything like that happen. But we have to keep this in context. We have a current president who is obviously old, obviously going through, you know, mental deficiencies, whatever that may be. He also has spent, you know, over 400 days on vacation. Almost 40% of his time has been spent at, you know, homes in Delaware on the beach and all this kind of stuff. Now, if we were talking about a super active president, right, like a Donald Trump or, you know, even Bill Clinton, George Bush, these guys went on runs and all that kind of stuff. Obama, basketball games and all, you know, all these events, right? That's going to take more resources. That's going to take more people, more planning, all of that. We have Joe Biden sitting at his vacation home in Delaware. I'm going to say the logistics to keep him safe there is going to be different than keeping a Donald Trump safe at a, I don't know, rally in Butler, Pennsylvania that's outdoors. Or a Bill Clinton that is, you know, it was a logistical nightmare for Secret Service because he would always do these runs. And that's one thing, look, I don't agree with anything Bill Clinton ever did, ever. But he wanted to be close to the people that voted for him. So he'd go on these runs and people would kind of join in. Secret Service didn't know who these people were. So that is, like I said, what I've read, that was a logistical nightmare for the Secret Service and is going to take much more planning than Joe Biden just kind of, you know, sitting in the basement. But what happens to the presidents after they leave office? Well, you know, they get a nice salary, $400,000 a year. I think for the first 30 months after they leave office for personnel and all that, they get an additional $150,000. Then after that, it's $96,000. I don't know what the cutoff for that actually is, but there's no, I don't think there is a cutoff for personnel spending. It eventually just goes down to $96,000 additional dollars. Now, ex-presidents, or former presidents, do have responsibilities, but they also make a really, really good living these days anyways, being a former president. Bill Clinton has amassed a wealth of $21 million since the year 2000. He's now worth $76 million. Between him and Hillary, I think somewhere in the neighborhood, they've made $158-160 million just in speaking events. And of course, taxpayers have to foot the bill for lifetime protection of all of these former presidents. As it sits right now, we have 5. Now, in 1965, Congress passed the law that said that Secret Service must protect former presidents for the rest of their life. And of course, they can decline it. Bill Clinton came along and changed that to a 10-year window. That didn't apply to him, by the way. He was exempt from that. But then in 2013, Obama signed back into law the lifetime protection. Now, of course, that would include him. And so there are personal reasons that they want protection, right? I think a 10-year window for most former presidents is probably going to be pretty good. Look, Jimmy Carter, who's really going after Jimmy Carter, right? Even George Bush, people have gone after him, obviously, while he was president. So many years have passed now. I'm not sure. But here's the biggest thing I want people to know is I don't want to see any of these former presidents get hurt. But these presidents, every single one of them are multi-millionaires, right? So after 10 years, if they have to pay a little bit of that $158 million between the Clintons to get a private security detail and take that off of taxpayers, that sounds like a pretty fair deal. And guess what? That opens up additional resources to protect a now former president and top Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump. The Obamas, George Bush, both of them worth $40 million plus. I think we should reduce the resources depending upon who the president is, how much money they have sitting in the bank. Look, we know how much the Clintons make, but I also think they could afford their own security detail if they really want that after a 10-year period and use it for people that, I don't know, are former presidents that are probably one of the most targeted people on the planet. And by the way, the top Republican candidate right now, who's Donald Trump, who could make history once again in November by being only the second president ever to have a non-consecutive term. To me, it seems like you would divert way more resources towards Trump and his security, especially with an Iranian plot to kill the guy, right? Compared to maybe Jimmy Carter or one of these other presidents that are doing really well. President Trump's doing really well, but it ain't been even close to 10 years since he's been out of office. I don't know. I think that's a fair balance. And look, not all presidents have been this rich, right? You probably won't ever see this again where former presidents are not multimillionaires or more than that, but Harry Truman, right? The president that led us through the end of World War II, it was obviously towards the end after FDR passed, but he wasn't a rich guy once he got out of office. Now, he ended up making some money from his autobiography, I believe. But anyways, they weren't always this well off. And they started out with a pension since George Washington of like $25,000. Now, adjusted for inflation, that's a pretty good paycheck, right, yearly. But now it's grown and swollen up to $400,000. And by the way, in 2016, Barack Obama vetoed a measure that was passed that would cap office expenses to $200,000 for former presidents. So these guys aren't afraid to spend my money and your money even when they get out of office. But I believe that a former president that is also the top candidate should be getting additional resources when asked. And maybe you would have diverted July 13th all the way around. When you look at that site, you had 2 counter sniper teams behind the president. You had 1 command center. You had an AGR building that was less than 150 yards away. You had local counter snipers inside the building, right? To me, it seemed like even if we look at the amount of people that were there in that vicinity, in that perimeter, to me it looks understaffed because there's just too many different angles, too many different mistakes here. But with all the mistakes, with all the communication stuff that we've talked about and all of that, this should not have been a mistake because he should have the security that's needed. And so should active former presidents as well. I think that's reasonable. But one more thing before we end this video, regardless of what you think about him, right? Not a super popular dude when he got out of office, but Richard Nixon and his wife declined additional security detail in 1985 to save the government money. That's something you will never, ever, ever see again. Pretty crazy, but Secret Service doesn't need more money. They actually need to start from the top down and just start firing and rehiring and get people in there that actually know how to run a budget. But again, we're talking about government, and they love having big budgets, overspending, and waste. And well, that's a part of the problem for the entire United States government, not just the Secret Service. But when it comes to this, they definitely don't need more money. They need better management. Now, unlike the Secret Service and the rest of the government agencies, real Americans like me and you actually have to consider a budget when we want to buy something additional. And so that's why I've set up, not only on this channel, but my other channel, the chance for y'all to win a 2025 Indian Scout Bobber. And the entry to get into this is less than what it takes for a family of 4 to get full meals at McDonald's. And the best part about our giveaways is we keep the pool of entries small and the time frame small. So you may see other bike giveaways, car giveaways, all that kind of stuff, where there's thousands and thousands of entries. Ours, a lot of the time, is less than 500 entries, which gives you the best possible chance at winning something really awesome. The bike, transportation, everything is on us. All you got to do is get on the bike and ride. The way you enter, click the link in the description of this video. It's the only link down there. Sign up to Headshot Nation. Headshot Nation is where I put all of my videos and my catalog on my own platform. So that way, if YouTube decides to pull the plug on the gun channel, I know that we will keep this thing going because we're going to have you right there the whole time. And in exchange for signing up to Headshot Nation, you get early access, exclusive videos. There's going to be courses coming to this. You can ask questions. You can do video requests as well. So instead of maybe some of your comments getting lost in the YouTube comment section, this is a place where all of us can really connect. And that's it. So click the link in the description. You got to enter by September 30th at 11:59 Pacific Standard Time for your chance to win a 2025 Indian Scout Bobber. Big thanks to every single one of you, and good luck. So there you go. That is my opinion on the whole burning through the budget thing for the Secret Service. Let me know what you think. Any additional things that you want to add to this, or maybe something you agree or disagree with? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.